Problem statement driven backlogs. Ahoy there, product owners. I've got 5 minutes. My goal is 4 to convince you that tomorrow your teams and organizations should start talking about your problems. Seriously, wouldn't that be embarrassing? I'm just kidding. I want them to talk about problem statements. Now, the question I almost always get asked first is, why are you talking about problems? Shouldn't you ask a more inspiring word like opportunities? First, you're such lovely people. Let's not get pedantic here. They're just words. Second, problem statements are not the same as opportunities. And without problem statements, we're seriously limiting the potential for innovation. Here's a quote from Simon, one of our amazing coaches. The values can be more easily understood as a solution to a problem or cost of not solving the problem. We talk about solutions all the time. Solutions to what? So let's first define a problem statement. According to the Oxford Dictionary, a problem statement identifies the gap between the current state and desired state of a process or a product, blah, blah, blah. Again, just kidding. I'm not going to quote a dictionary. All it really means is that we have a goal and there is stuff we need to figure out if you're going to accomplish that goal. And so let's, excuse me, there you go. So first, you better have a goal, and you better have a pretty good idea of what reaching that goal would look like. Here we see that we have an organizational goal, and next to it is a team goal that hopefully contributes to the organizational goal. By 1720, we will be the richest treasure hunters to ever sail the 7 seas, and we have some nice KPIs and OKRs to check our progress. Our team will seek out buried treasure left behind by pirates in the Caribbean. We think that will help us meet our team goal. Problem statements then let you plan out what you actually need to accomplish to get there. The impediments. You may discover that some of the problems are quite big, risky, or maybe not even feasible. Start with those problems. Seriously, let's get cracking. Save your team a whole lot of time and effort. You may find that you need to adapt your team goal really early. A problem-driven backlog is where you prioritize the biggest problem getting in your way of reaching a goal until it's not the biggest problem anymore. We don't have a way to get treasure back from the Caribbean. That's a pretty big problem. And the problem, we don't have enough sailors to operate the ship, probably isn't worth solving until the first problem is solved. To solve a problem, you will need certain outcomes to be true. You may recall achieving the best outcomes is the primary role of a product owner. Looking at the example, you probably need enough ships for a sizable crew, and your ships better be able to handle the voyage. This is how you know the problem is getting solved. Now, the bad news is that product owners are dumb. The good news is that a group of people are smart and can help the product owner. But the only way it works is if it's really easy. Product backlogs are dense. Roadmaps and Gantt charts don't explain the why very well. People are busy. They need a very simple way to understand what the team is doing and why. But when that happens, you get opportunities. Your team and organization get bought into the vision, the product owner gets better outcomes, and you start creating innovative opportunities. Sometimes those opportunities solve your problem statements. Sometimes they change the vision itself, and you get a whole new set of problem statements. Now, how does this relate to the backlog? Simple. Backlog items contribute to outcomes, which contribute to solving problem statements, which contribute to the team goal, which contributes to your goal. Simple, right? Last bit of advice. If you choose to copy this model, I do find that it works better to organize from smaller to bigger because smaller things change the most often. The link to this board is in the presentation, and you can find additional information and templates within. I will leave you with a haiku. Large order list. Shift to problem statements. Real innovation. Thank you.
Yay! Nicely done.
Awesome. Yeah.
That was
Nicely
awesome.
done.
Yep. That was 4 minutes and about 30 seconds. So,
All right. I went a little faster than normal, actually.
And it was so creative. That was really cool.
I love the pirate ship thing. That's great.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah, that presentation actually has a ton of Easter eggs in there too. So if you want to explore more,
Oh yeah?
there's a lot in that. There's like a whole full backlog of like, how do you get the most treasure?
So, well, how do we get the presentation? Are you going to put the link in?
I'll find some way. Yeah, I should be able to just share
Yeah, that would be fun.
directly.
Nice. Nice job, Mike.
Yeah, that was cool.
Oh, okay. So behind the scenes, because for folks who, like me, who are scared to do these, what kind of, walk us kind of through the preparation and like how much work went into doing this?
That's a good question.
So the hardest part was definitely figuring out the logistics of how do I, so I was reading from the script. I think you probably picked up on that because my eyes are going back and forth. Because it was just, trying to explain this concept is really difficult.
I didn't notice it either, but yeah.
Oh, great.
I didn't.
Well, that was the hardest part, was how do I hide that, right? So I actually have a second computer that's acting like a teleprompter for me, but I'm trying to scroll with it with one hand while also navigating the presentation and with another.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
So that was really difficult to get figured out. And the first time I did trial run, they were like, oh, the jokes aren't funny because you're not looking at the camera. Like it just loses that whole value. So I had to figure out like, how do I get this line just right? The other part was that I've been working on that. It looks so simple, right? This backlog looks so simple, and it's not like rocket science in a sense, but in a very real sense, like I've been working on this thing for like 8 months, and there is so much thought that goes into like all of these seemingly simple things, and trying to distill all of that down into 5 minutes is like crazy hard.
Yeah.
That's really cool, though.
Yep. And how many times did you practice it?
Like 5? Not a ton.
All right. Okay.
But I like it. I like to, I don't like to over prepare.
Nice.
That's awesome. Nice job.
Well, cool. Okay. What I forgot to say is introduce yourself and say what you do. So, Mike, introduce yourself and say what where you work and what you do.
My name is Mike Berman. I am a freelance pirate. No, I am the product owner for the practitioner team at Scrum Alliance. And I ride a mountain bike a lot.
Cool.
Yeah, you do.
Very cool. Okay. All right. Well, Daniel, looks like you got you're up next.
Yeah.
And you have a different format, which is kind of exciting. Maybe, Daniel, if you can introduce yourself, say what you do, and then maybe introduce the type of talk that you're going to give, because it's different than what we talked about on our meeting website.
Sure. So I'm Daniel Lin. I'm an Agile coach and trainer, whatever other titles we feel like inventing this year, because it's 2020 and why not? Let's have fun with it. So the talk I'm doing, I've actually never gotten to do this. This was a big thing a couple years ago. Went through the Agile conference circuits, and then it died away really fast because people realized it was a pain in the butt. It's called a pechakucha. I'm sure I'm screwing that up, but the gist is it's usually something like 20 slides, 20 seconds each. So I'm cheating a little bit because I'm going to manually advance my slides. Usually it just runs in the background, and if you lose timing with it, that's on you. I'm going to cheat a little bit because just technology reasons, right? If something goes awry, it's way easier for me to account for it if I have to stop or something, if I'm manually advancing it. I'm sure other technology problems will happen because,
because it is this meetup.
Because it's 2020.
It's Zoom. Like it's 2020.
And tonight.
Right. So yeah. So I'm gonna have I have to follow Mike's, but mine's tongue in cheek and it's fun. I hope people enjoy it. So, awesome. Here goes nothing. So when I started with Scrum years ago, we did everything wrong. We not only did we not know the rules of Scrum, but we actually didn't know that there were rules to Scrum. And I find that this is actually a really common thing. And so I wanted to talk about easy to follow guide to perfectly imperfect Scrum. And part of the thing that triggered this for me is I was looking at a survey that was from a couple years ago. Out of 130 organizations practicing Scrum, almost 40% didn't have a single PO. Over 35% didn't have Scrum Masters, 40% had exceedingly large teams, and I figured, well, if we're gonna screw it up, let's screw it up right. And so here's how to do that. First, we have to understand what is Scrum, right? And we know, like, there's the Scrum Guide stuff, right? It's framework within a P, blah, blah, blah. I'm doing the same thing Mike did, blahing through a definition. We have our roles, we have our artifacts, we have our events, and what we're going to do with these is start by throwing them in the trash. So let's forget that those even existed, and there's just a couple that we're going to stick around. And I want to give you 4 steps using just these to get started with perfectly imperfect Scrum. And the very first step you need to do is you need to pick a challenge. Your challenge should be worth solving. It should be something that when you tell people about it, they immediately understand the value. And it should be something that you failed to solve before. Scrum is not for doing the things you've always done, right? But it shouldn't be dangerous. No one should get fired about this, right? Great example, take something that's frustrating in someone's job in an inefficient process and fix that. They're gonna love it. They're gonna appreciate you for it, right? But it's probably a little bit tough, right? If it wasn't, someone would have fixed it by now. So that's our first step, pick a challenge. Second step, I want you to form a team. And here's how I want you to form a team. Find 1 or 2 people who are passionate about this challenge and know about it. They know about why it's a problem. They know who it's impacted. They know the history and the organization with it. And maybe they're at least aware of the technical side of it. Now let them recruit their team. Let them pick the people that they think they need to tackle this challenge. And yes, they're going to get your star players. That's part of doing this. No one picks the worst person for the job, but you're doing a bit of an experiment and you want this to work, so go with it. Now that you have a team, give them time to do the work, right? We talk about fully dedicated teams, and that's a shortcut, and it's great. It's a great shortcut, but the truth is you don't have to. I've worked on Scrum projects that are 1 day a week, and after a month, we put an increment together and put it out there, right? But if you're going to do that, remember some things. Calendar meetings are not time. Just because it's on someone's Google Calendar doesn't mean you have given them time to do the work, right? And they're going to have pressures on them. People are going to ask them to do other things. Whatever team they work with, right, is still going to ask them to do tasks. So really create that time for them. And step 4, demand that progress is demonstrated frequently. What has actually changed in this product? How are we closer to solving this challenge than we were before? Now, I say frequently, in Scrum, we call this a sprint, right? But you should ask them what has changed and to show it, not talk about it. Ask them what's next. How does what you learned in this past couple of weeks inform what you're going to do in the next couple of weeks? And most importantly, should there be a next? Are you done? Are you done solving the challenge? Are you done investing? Right? That should always be this looming cloud behind you that maybe you're packing it in. So what about training? Is that a step? And my answer pretty clearly is meh. Yes, I make my living training, but meh. Training is nice to have. That's really the truth of it. Training's nice to have. Your people already know how to build your product. They're gonna figure it out, and they're gonna make mistakes with or without training. Here's the thing about training. Modern training techniques teach us that training's most effective when I can connect the learning to something I already know. And so if I've tried to do these things, I've tried to work in a Scrum-like environment, I'm going to get more out of that training than if I've never heard of this stuff before. Sorry, Mike, does that mean the CSM's garbage? No, it doesn't. I do want to just put this in. I don't want to offend too many people. The goal of most CSM classes is to show people that there is something different, not to teach them to be proficient in it, right? Which is why, hey, it's still a worthwhile industry. Very, very last thing I want to talk about. Don't do this, please. Don't actually do any of the stuff that I just said. You can do it. It is how I started in Scrum, and it does work. But the reality is we don't have to do this anymore. Here's why. I put together this talk to focus on the principles, to stress that you can dive into Scrum while throwing out the Scrum guide. But all principles and no practices is going to give you a lot of headaches getting you there. It is better than the other way. No principles and all practices will give you all the same headaches and never get you to success. But the truth is, it's not a zero-sum game anymore. We've really ironed out a lot of the kinks in Scrum, and you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have all the principles and all the practices in your Scrum adoption, and that's where I would encourage you to go. And that is my talk.
Boom. 6
Woohoo.
minutes on the dot. Nice.
Nice.
Just wanted
Okay.
to say at the start of your presentation, like we did not collaborate. That was like surprising.
That is crazy. It is. That is really crazy. That was super cool.
Yeah, that was neat.
And that
So-
was, yeah, sorry. That was how many slides per second? What,
It's 20 seconds per slide.
20 seconds per slide. Okay.
And,
Which is-
and is there like a limit to the slides, like 20 slides in 20 seconds? That's what I
Yeah.
thought it was. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So
That's
yeah, absolutely. And it was a really big thing for a while where they do this whole bank of pitch-a-cooches like at Scrum gathering, and people would just get up and like run through them real quick, and then the next person would get up and run through them, and it was kind of cool because you got to hear a lot of stuff really fast. Yeah, but kind of fell out of practice.
God, I love that.
Well, interestingly, I just saw a meetup, one of the Denver meetups, and I don't think it's a SIG though.
It was
That-
it was Colleen's Agile
Yes.
Uprising podcast.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to
Yeah.
be on her Agile Uprising podcast, and I forget the date, but they're doing Pecha Kucha.
Yep.
Yeah. So she posted, I know she posted in Slack. I don't know where
Mhm.
else. But yeah.
I saw it in Slack too. Yeah. So Daniel, that's your next.
Nice.
Out of curiosity, so I have a question. So you said, so basically every 20 seconds the slide is supposed to change. You chose not to do that. So how come? I'm curious.
I like why did I do it manually?
Yes.
I was just worried that from a technical standpoint, like if there was a hiccup in a slide or a hiccup in connection or something, that trying to resync to the automatic advance would just be this massive headache that would add like an extra 5 minutes into things
Yeah.
that if I just clicked the button, it made that headache go away.
And did you time it?
Yeah.
So every 20 seconds you knew you were
Yep.
hitting?
Yep, I
Okay.
have my phone over here. I was watching it.
Okay. No, that's cool. And you know what? You might want to share that with Colleen just in case. Because that's a really good point for her meetup, just in case.
Yeah, that's cool. That's great. That's great stuff.
Yeah.
It's fun. It keeps you on point.
Yeah.
So it's not so much of a question. I just found it really interesting because just a few days ago we had a really big conversation about being versus doing in Scrum, and I just basically swapped the words principles and practices. But I was having a conversation with a friend that just started working for Starlink over at SpaceX in California, and she's saying this is like the Wild West there, right? They really don't have practices. They just hire people out of college that are really smart, but they kind of embody this idea of agility. Like they don't have the tools, but they know how to be agile. And she was saying that it's really funny because these really smart kids would work really hard on these new processes and ideas, and they go, "Look, I'm a genius. I figured this out." And they're like, "That's just Scrum." Right? They just reinvented Scrum.
That's
You know
funny.
what? That was happening like when I started with Scrum. That was happening all over the place. Like everyone was just discovering the same practices at the same time, and that's why I said at the end, like, don't kill yourself. Do it. Like we did that at that time. No, like we were so confused when like we're practicing Scrum, and then if you just like Google Scrum, you get some amazing stuff. I'm sure it's different now, but like you know, there was that like 15 years ago, like oh my God, that was you get some crazy stuff come up, and we're like I'm sorry, we're doing what software? But yeah, so I mean, like I think it's really valuable knowing that knowing that like the practices aren't the end all be all. These are like the stuff that 95% of people co-discovered at the same time. That's the stuff that's worked its way into the Scrum Guide. And that's why it's there, because they were trying to live these principles, and they're like, okay, we all agree this is a thing we should do. Cool, let's put that in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's interesting too, listening to that, at Rally, and Veronica knows about this, we are actually finding ourselves because of change for various reasons, because of attrition, because of, you know, acquisitions, because numerous reasons, right? So we're actually finding ourselves having to go back to the basics of Scrum because they've been lost. You know, it started out that way and then it morphed into whatever was needed at the time. And we've kind of gotten so far away from the processes and practices that support the values that we've had, like we're starting over. Kind of crazy.
Cool.
Probably a great time to clear out all those processes that aren't serving you anymore too.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we'll let you all go. And thank you very much for joining in. It's been a blast. And thank you so much for contributing.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Yeah, take care,
You guys
everyone.
too.
Have a good night.
All right,
All right, take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
stay safe.